What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lexi Johnson, and this is my husband and co-host, Brett Johnson. Guys, he's back after, like a 3-week absence, so I know that I'm not alone in being super excited to have him back. I'm sure a lot of you guys had missed him, but I'm excited to chat with him. We were talking about what we were going to talk about here, and I was like, you have to perform because you've been holding in some thoughts for the past 3 weeks. Obviously, he hasn't been here to record with me, so I'm stoked. We're going to talk about 2023 because somehow we found ourselves in the last week of the year, and it happens every year. It happens every month that I'm like, holy crap, how is October already over? How is November already over? And then here we are. January is just a few days away. So how are you feeling at the tail end of 2023?
I already know it's going to be hard to write 2024 on paper.
Yeah, it's at least the third week of January before I'm like, oh, yes, that makes sense for me to start typing 24.
I know. Yeah, the first couple of weeks are rough. I write a lot of dates with my work. I have to date a lot of signatures and just paperwork in general. So I get in the swing of it, but like the first week or two, it's always like a weird adjustment. And I'm already projecting that. But yeah, I can't believe it's already here. But that happens every year. So it just goes to show how quickly time passes.
It does. And I've mentioned this. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast, but I know I've talked to you about it. The reason behind, I think, every year going faster is because it becomes a smaller percentage of your life. Like when I was younger, a year felt like an eternity. When I was younger, a 2-hour car ride felt like an eternity. But now a year just goes by so much faster because now it's 1/27th of my life rather than a fourth of my life when I was 4 years old, you know?
Yeah.
Does that have any basis to it?
I can't say that theory is incorrect. I mean, it does seem like looking back that time passed so much slower whenever you were a child. And I guess that does make sense. I mean, relative to, the time that you've been alive, it's a smaller percentage now. And I don't know. It's hard for me to grasp time.
We were talking about Christmas traditions a couple weeks ago. And on Christmas Eve, my grandpa always reads the Christmas story from the Bible. And now, having, more wherewithal, I understand it takes maybe 5 minutes to read that. Maybe 5 minutes. But the setup is that, like, when I was little, I was just so excited because I knew after he got done reading that, we could open presents, and then we would track Santa, and then we would all go home, and we would go to sleep, and then Santa would be there when we woke up. And the anticipation, I kid you not, if you would have asked me as a child, I would have said that at least took an hour and a half for him to read. Like, I'm completely serious. At minimum 90 minutes for him to complete that. And now it's easily 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is so funny.
Now you cherish the moment of him reading the story.
Yeah.
Because you're very present in that moment and you have an appreciation for it. Whereas in the situation you're describing as a child looking back.
I'm like, Grandpa, wrap it up.
Yeah. That was the last thing that you wanted to be taking place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. But anyway, it is almost 2024. And before we start talking 2024 goals or anything like that, I want to talk 2023, the highs, the lows, the lessons, because it was a big year. A lot of things changed, and just kind of going over things that, hey, we could talk about this. You had said, I already forgot that happened earlier this year. So what were your big marks or big moments in 2023? Anything memorable?
So this is kind of hard for me because I live a life that is very much so private compared to your very much so public life. So there's I kind of tend to think about the achievements that you've had over what I have personally. It's hard for me to keep track of what I do because it's not really documented. It's just my life. So
you've gotten exceedingly hotter in 2023. I will say that because you won't. You've got every month
since 2022 to 2023.
Yeah, I thought you were good looking in 2022, but that dude had nothing on you now. And I said that when I go back and look at pictures from when we first got together, I was like, man, if she knew what was in store 8 years down the road, you're a fine wine. I really, truly believe you continue to get hotter.
Well, thank you.
I feel like I'm on cruise control, unfortunately. Maybe in a downhill slide.
No, you're not.
But I will say that because that was really complimentary that you note more of my achievements or events.
Yeah, it's easier for me. I don't know. It's so hard to keep track of like what happens in a year. For me anyway. Like my memory is, I guess, just maybe not what it should be with remembering everything that has taken place in a 12-month time span.
That's concerning to me. Go on.
I mean, I can remember it all. I don't really think about it all the time. You know, I'm just kind of living in the moment and looking at what's next rather than looking at what's been done. So I guess good and bad there, more goal oriented than focusing on what I have achieved.
Well, for the sake of the topic, I want you to reflect a little.
I'm like there's been some landmark things that were more achievements for you than for me that stick out, as we were just reflecting a little bit before we started this. But you adding more team members was a big one.
I feel like that's been just a huge lesson of 2023, and I can go into that a little bit later, is just the value of a team and not just having more bodies in place and hands on deck, just the quality of those people. So I've essentially added 3 people: Erica, Mikan, and then not Mikan. Mikan was the tail end of 2022. Erica, Libby, just recently, and then I actually added Dawson way earlier in April, and I consider him part of the team. For those of you guys that don't know, Dawson is our videographer, but he's also a really good person to bounce ideas off of, very business oriented. So, and I work closely with him, so I consider him part of the team too. But just having more hands on deck that add value, that complement your weaknesses, it's really unique because our team we're all very different personality wise,
which is good.
Which is so nice. Yeah, it's nice because you have said multiple times, if it was a team full of people just like me, we would not get along well.
You absolutely wouldn't.
So yeah, it's nice.
That many threes in a confined space is not bound
Erica
to end
and
up
Libby
well.
are both 3s.
They're a softer 3 than you. You are a hard 3.
I'm pretty bullheaded. But yeah, it's just personality wise, it's cool that we have such a diverse group and diverse experiences. I don't know. It's been really cool, and it complements our community really well, because I feel like in some facet or another, there's a person on the team that can relate to you in some way.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, and personally, go ahead.
Sorry. And just kind of checking myself and realizing that I can't do it by myself has been a big deal.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was going to turn that around and discuss, is that, like, personally, it helps you out a lot just with your everyday life. Like, you can't do this alone, and you can't take this to the heights that you want to take it to without other good people. And you being able to offload and trust people that you've taken on your team, and allowing them to work with your people. And there's a lot to that. There's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of things that go into making sure that sort of delegation is done in a good way. But nonetheless, it's been good for our relationship too, because then you're able to be a little more present. I mean, there's always a level of just constant worry whenever you're a business owner, because you're always worried about things that you're dealing with right now. You're worried about things that are going to be coming in the future. It's just, that's the way it goes. And being able to get people that you trust on your team, being able to bring on those people and affect their lives in a positive way as well. You know, it's an all around good thing. And I've seen it help you, and it's helped us too in our relationship. So
that's cool to hear from you. Because yeah, it's still a learning curve, just letting off the reins a little bit, because Lexi J Wellness is my baby, and no one's ever going to love your business or care about your business as much as you do. However, I feel like the people on our team come pretty damn close. They're very invested and they care so much, and
that level of buy-in is not easy to find in people.
Yeah, and that's why
there's people that just want a job, and then there's people who come to make a difference in a workplace.
Right. Yeah, it's are you here to do something, or are you just here for something to do?
Exactly.
And it's really, really cool. Just the confidence I have in delegating now to those people is so freeing and liberating. So to hear how it's affected you, like our relationship, that's really good. And it's just reinforcing that, those uncomfortable stretches where I didn't want to let off the reins and I didn't want to delegate, that it's worth it. And it gives me confidence moving forward that we can continue to do that a little bit more, which is awesome.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, that's a side of it that I'll add to it.
I love that.
But Athlete of the Year was a big one.
That's pretty surreal.
Yeah, that one, just like looking back in the moment, there was just so much, I don't know. I mean, that was an event, and there was thousands of people there. So getting to see that take place and watch it in real time and knowing just how much went into it, like that was one of the more emotional moments of the year for me, because it was just a culmination of a lot of hard work and just gritty nights and days of just never stopping and never quitting on that goal, and just getting to witness it happen right before me. It was really cool, and it's hard to put into words just how special something like that is, and just a little bit of a nudge, whenever you're living a life of high standards and high aspirations, and then you get that little nudge along the way just to help keep pushing you forward, because it just helps you. It reinforces the fact that you are making a difference, and there's going to be things along the way that happen that are super special on that path.
The event itself and Sal announcing me as First Form's Athlete of the Year was completely surreal. That's like vision board material, how many times I've visualized a moment or something like that, and it exceeded all the expectations. But I will say, coming off that stage and seeing you be emotional and just like getting to celebrate that moment with you was the best part of the whole day. It was way cooler than being up there, and that was so special. That makes me teary-eyed thinking about it.
Well, it wouldn't have been emotional if I didn't know just how freaking hard you worked behind the scenes. Like, people don't know that. Like, they don't get to see it. They see you on social media and they think, oh, she just makes a post or two a day. She records a 28-minute workout and she calls it a day and shuts the laptop, closes the book, and goes and F's off the rest of the day. I mean, that is so far from what you could possibly imagine goes into everything that happens behind the scenes here. Like, it is a 24/7 job. And that is what it is. That's what you sign on for. We're not looking for pats on the back, but people just don't get it. Unless you do it yourself, you don't get it. And I get it because I live it and I get to watch you do it. And I watch just how damn hard you work, and just get something like that and get the recognition that you deserve. And I don't use the word deserve very often because I think that that's a very entitled word, but you did deserve that. And frankly, it was overdue. And it was just something that was extremely, extremely, I don't know, I was proud. I was extremely proud. And it was a very emotional moment.
Well, it's making an emotional moment for me right now. Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things where unless you said you don't, I'm not looking for pats on the back or anything, but it was just kind of coming to a head of just a lot of really, really hard work and sacrifices and things that people would never know about. But it was cool to know that that it resulted in positivity that was noticed, something good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was special. So that was a big one for 23.
Yeah,
not just for you, but for me as well.
that was really cool. It's gonna be hard to top in 2024, but we're gonna do it. The biggest one, obviously, was just over the span of the entire year, the construction of our home. And that was honestly, people want to talk about not knowing what goes in behind the scenes. And we've mentioned so much about, like, Brett has really taken the reins on this. And I can't even explain the depths to that. Brett is constantly on the phone, in communications with a million different contractors, subcontractors. He is the most thorough individual I've ever met. And I've known that for 8 years now. But to see him construct, like, the vision of this home down to reverse osmosis water filters and, like, the things that I would simply never think about, and making, I mean, like, it's those things that the distance at which the gutters drain from the house, that I would be like, well, that probably just comes standard and that's fine with me, or whatever. Like, Brett has just completely poured every single ounce of brain power into this house. And now that we're just a few weeks away, crossing my fingers saying that, we're just a few weeks away from living in it. It's so cool. And that is completely you. I'm excited to live in your little kin dream home. Barbie dream house, but it's Brett's dream house.
It's very much so ours.
Yes, but
but thank you.
Yeah, you were the visionary.
Quite literally. I did a lot of visualization about this. That's how I got half my ideas. And also things that I figured out that I hadn't thought about before. Yeah, visualization did a lot of good for me in 23 with the house. And then you literally get to watch it come to life, just like visualization is, professed to do.
It is pretty cool. The exterior was, like, the color and that kind of thing. That was more of really what I had more say in. It's talking visualization. This was a cool moment as we were moving stuff into the outbuilding. So we obviously didn't move everything down to the lake here. We have a shed on our property where we fortunately can store all of our stuff. And I was moving stuff into that. And in this box was my vision board from a couple years ago. And it has this picture of a house and it says future home across it. And it is a dark house with stone and wood features. And I'm looking at that in the box that I'm holding. And then I'm looking up at the house that we're going to move into, in a few months. And I'm like, holy crap, it's right here, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is pretty wild. The construction process, just if you put a lot of thought power into it, and then just getting to watch your dreams come to a very tangible reality. It's just a cool process.
Yes, I think that a lot of people talk about, like, the stresses of building a house. And I think that the most stressful thing, in my opinion, is just being out of control on, like, deadlines specifically. And that is by far the most stressful thing. And I align it with, like, when your flight gets delayed. Like, it's frustrating, it's annoying.
But
there's quite literally nothing you can do about it, though. You just sit on your hands. Like, at the end of the day, I can't hop in the plane and fly it. I can't,
right,
install plumbing or septic or electrical or anything like that. So you just sit and you wait, and that's the most stressful thing for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the uncontrollables.
Yeah,
just like anything in life, the uncontrollables are the ones that really get to you. But yeah, no, it's been a exciting process. We're nearing the tail end of it.
Should we share the most recent? Because Brett has thought down to every single detail, but I don't want people listening to this and think that, like, it's just like, all sunshine and rainbows. So we went furniture shopping a few weeks ago, and I had ordered a bed like 2 months ago. This bed that I saw on someone's Instagram, I loved it. I found it, and it was like it was going to take several months to order, or several months to arrive. So I'm like, perfect. That'll probably align pretty well. I'll order this bed. King size, right? We're going to have a king size bed in our master bedroom, of course. And so Brett and I are going furniture shopping, and we went to the house to measure, to just make sure, okay, how big does a couch need to be, have a, dining room table, all that good stuff. And I'm like, just out of curiosity, I want to make sure that the bed that I ordered is going to have plenty of room, and then we can see if we need like a chair or something in our bedroom. If you could see the configuration of our bedroom, we have built-in cabinets for nightstands. That way we didn't have to get physical nightstands. Something that Brett thought ahead, like there's lots of built-in features, and they match up right underneath the windows. Perfect. Our bed's going to go right in between those built-in nightstands. And when I say built-in cabinets, it's not like a cabinet that was made and just sat on the ground there. It is built onto the wall that sits out. And so I look up the dimensions of the bed I ordered, and then I pull the tape measure out, and it is like 9 inches too small. Like, that is not just we can probably make it squeeze. It is a significant amount more narrow. And this was such a hard, I don't even know. It was not pretty. Brett was not happy. At first, Brett was on the, like, you were the practical thinker, and because I was upset the bed I ordered and the bed I loved was not going to fit, and it was already on its way. So I'm like, okay, shit, what are we going to do? I doubt we can just return this because it's going to be shipped in freight or whatever. And Brett's like, we'll find a bed that you love just as much. So Brett was the logical thinker. And then he moved to another area of the house. He's measuring, and I'm sitting in there, and I'm like, 9 inches is not a mistake. That is crazy. That is a huge, like, how big is this bed? It's like a rocket ship. So then I look up the dimensions of a king size mattress, and we realize that can barely fit this space. So there's no way that a bed frame could fit. And there's just that one little overlooked point that a king size mattress, a king size bed is not going to fit in our master bedroom. And then I bring that information to Brett, and I become the practical one, and Brett becomes illogical. Guys, Brett is such a level-headed man, does not get upset very easily. He was upset. He was so mad. He's like, we're going to board up the windows, which I told him, I was like, that's a stupid solution. That is an irrational, emotional solution. But the silver lining, do you guys know that a California king is actually more narrow than a king size bed? They take 4 inches off the width and they add it to the length. So California king is just for tall, skinny people, apparently. So that's our solution. We're going to get a California king bed, and it's going to fit perfectly.
I lost it.
Yeah, he was, oh my gosh.
The thing is, I paid attention to every detail along the way, but I assumed that whenever the architect put that together, being that it was on paper, it was meant for a king size bed, that was thought out. The windows themselves were put too narrow, and therefore the cabinets were just put in right underneath the windows. It wasn't because the cabinets were built too big or anything like that. It's just the windows were put too close. They were too narrow. And it was an oversight. And I just assumed, which that's what happens when you make assumptions and you don't check things, that was right. And I remember thinking to myself at one point in time, whenever the building was erected and the windows were put in, I thought, it's hard to really grasp the size of a room whenever it's bare bones. I mean, you truly can't grasp how much space certain things take up. But in my mind, I thought those windows look a little narrow for a king size bed. But I'm sure that it's just because the size, of this room is just hard for me to really take in. Your depth perception, everything just gets thrown off whenever it's just a vacant room.
Yeah, my spatial awareness I've learned through this process, is very poor. Yeah. I have no awareness of how much space an object would take up how big a room should be.
Yeah, until you really take a measuring tape to it, it's very difficult to see how much room something's going to take up. So I didn't really second guess it, but I remember thinking to myself at the time, I should ask about that. But I was like, no, I asked 6,000 questions. I'm going to ask one less. So I'm just going to trust it. And then it made me that much more mad because at the time, I remember going through that thought process of wanting to check it, but I didn't. And because of that, I was kicking myself as we're standing there whenever everything's basically finished in the room and we're ready to put furniture in it, or, gearing up to put furniture in it. So that's what amplified it for me. So just to give a little bit of context. So that made me irate.
Yeah, he was not happy at all.
The only other solution was tearing out the cabinets and redoing it, which I was very, very close to doing, which would have been a pain, but we could still do it. But then I thought, okay, well, wait a second. I kind of had a logical thought process after I was able to remove myself from the situation. And I thought, wait a second, a California king is actually 4 inches more narrow. So what if? And then we went down that path. And
I had no idea. I just thought the California king was like a mega bed in all areas. Well, it should be, because people that need extra length aren't just like, I feel like people that are typically taller, they're going to take up more space. They got long limbs too, long arms.
But I mean, so it's a nice compromise because it's way wider. California kings are still way wider than a queen.
Yeah.
But you just, it's 4 inches less than a king instead of like 12 inches less or something like that. It's a significant difference between a queen and a king.
I told Brett we could have had bunk beds, which would have been fun.
That would have been so fun. Could have rotated every day.
Yeah. So then we went furniture shopping, and that was an exhaustive process. I kid you not. We went into the store, and the couches, this woman was selling us on couches. And we had a very specific, okay, we want this brown leather couch that we've had on a Pinterest board for a long time. And she's like, perfect. I know just the one. And she sits us on a couch that has to be similar to the couch that we're sitting on right now. It is like a green fabric couch.
Right. Definitely not leather. Definitely not the same couch that we were looking at.
Yes. And she was like, just imagine if that couch you're sitting on is leather and it's brown and it's taller and the arms are thicker. And I'm like, so you just imagine that the couch that we're sitting on is entirely different than every aspect of the reality. And then she's like, do you love it? I died. I was like, you've got to be joking right now. It felt like a skit because she was so serious. And she was like, just imagine. And I'm like, imagine that what we're sitting on right now is completely different. Now, do you love it? It was just such a goofy experience.
We made it past that.
We ordered a couch. We ordered a couch online.
So if you're in the business of sales, let me just make a quick recommendation for you. Don't do that.
I mean, I have to give it to her. We talk about visualization a lot. She was like leaning into that.
Really trying to think it into existence.
Okay, 2023. What else happened?
We named off some big ones.
Chiefs won the Super Bowl.
That's true.
That was big.
Rewind. I always think of that being like, it's the 2022 season.
I've got it down one.
Yeah. Oh, Sadie.
We had to put Sadie down. That was about the same time.
See, and that seems like so long ago now. I until you did I could see your emotions changing, and then it came to me before you said it.
Well, because I'm like, want to make sure that we tell the full story of 2023, that it certainly hasn't all been upsides. We had to put our first pet down. We've never had to do that before, and that was very, very hard. So we had a black lab, Sadie, who she was like 12 or 13.
Yeah.
We had to put her down in the spring, and that was really tough. Just the act of taking your dog in for the inevitable, oh my gosh, it wrecks you. I walked out of there, I'm like, I don't know what kind of psychopath can go to school to be a veterinarian and know that that's going to be part of their day.
Yeah, no joke.
Because neither of us were composed.
That was heart-wrenching. Yeah. I have never had to do that before. And it was very difficult because this is absolutely something that other people have gone through. So I'm sure it's relatable for a lot of people, but just being the one to make the decision for that pet, that you're going to end its life for them, like that's the hardest thing. I mean, and it was a very rational and thought out process, because at some point you have to stop thinking about yourself and you have to think about them. And her quality of life had diminished greatly, and her body was shutting down because she had a kidney disease. So it needed to happen, but still and yet you still have to make that very, very difficult decision for them. They can't tell you, they can't communicate it to you that, hey, I've lived my best life, but it's time.
Ugh, and it breaks my heart even talking about it now.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult thing. And yeah, that was a highly emotional part of the year, and that was hard.
That was really hard.
That was really,
and
really
for
hard.
anyone that, I mean, any pet owner in general, because that time is inevitable, unfortunately, for just unless an accident happens. But the question that we had to keep asking ourselves was, okay, are we keeping her around for us, or are we keeping her around for her? And that was a really hard thing, because she could have, I mean, she was alive and she would have kept living, but she was not living a good life, and she wasn't comfortable. And
she was alive, but she wasn't living.
It was very much, those final days were more for us, for our comfort, and that wasn't fair.
Yeah. Even the day before, whenever we had to make that call, it was still incredibly difficult, even though we knew, there was no doubt in our mind that it had to happen, but still doesn't make it any easier.
Yeah, that was definitely a low point. Oof.
Yeah, that was just point blank. It sucked. Yeah. It sucked. But so that was hard. Right now it's pretty hard.
Yeah,
we're living separately a lot of the time, and short-term pain for what will be something that's well worthwhile. But right now really sucks, because just for our own relationship, it's just difficult. And some people probably do this regularly, and it's just their life. But you and I aren't really wired that way. We're pretty well attached at the hip. We are each other's best friends, and we're used to coming home every day to each other for the most part, and just experiencing life together and talking all the time. And I guess fortunately we live in a day and age where we have this little device that we use to communicate during the day anyway, but nothing matches, that human interaction. And it sucks to not really get to do that right now. Yeah.
The last month or so they've been hard on my mental health for sure, which has impacted my physical health. So I'm speaking completely candidly, I'm not happy at all with where I am physically or where I am mentally, and they tie in so directly for me. At this point, I work out 90% of the time for my mental health, and just being isolated down here, being away from you, being really away from my team and anybody that's more familiar, it's just been really hard. So yeah, the last 5 or 6 weeks have been tough.
Definitely. Yeah. I would say we are definitely over halfway. Should be.
I hope so.
In this little interim phase, but won't be long, and we'll be back in our new routine.
Yeah, I'm desperate for that. And I hate being reliant on a routine. It's more just I don't know. Selfishly, I just want my time with you. And I hate that in this time where this stretch we're in right now, the time that we get together is rarely alone. It's rarely just the two of us. We're staying in someone else's house, or we're at a Thanksgiving or a Christmas or a birthday party or a recital or something.
Part of that's just this time of year, because whenever it is a weekend, then that means we have to go be somewhere, because of the time of year that this is all falling on. So that's just I guess I don't want to say unfortunate. It's like I love this time of year. It's a great time of year. But like as far as being able to have a little bit of time just to ourselves, it's not great because we are spending it with others whenever I do and you do, have a little spare time.
Yeah, so it's not like, I mean, you're running to someone's, like, to a niece or nephew's basketball game or recital or something, and then coming back home and, like, you and I just get to be us. But then we're going to their home, and we're fortunate to have family that allows that. But it's different. It feels like we're dating again, and we're just, like, bebopping from our parents' house or our
nothing's
siblings'
just
house.
There's just really nothing that's steady and dependable right now, which is just hard. We're somewhat, not somewhat, we are creatures of habit. I hate to make it seem like I'm totally reliant on a routine, but I like routine. I like something that's dependable. There's always things that are going to pop up, but this is just not great. Just having to drive so much to be in one spot and then the next. And
because you're about, like, where you work is about 4 hours from here.
Yeah.
So you're here for 24 hours. And then we'll drive separately back so we can do Christmases.
This weekend. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess moving on to, like, me personally, there's been definitely good things, but right now I guess it's at the forefront of what's happening in the here and now. We, like, at my work, we have one of the companies that we write insurance through that is closing. They are in liquidation mode, so we are in the midst of kind of a very chaotic time where we're having to move and shuffle a lot of existing business to different companies, and it's just absolute chaos.
I don't think a lot of people know what you do.
Yeah, so like my day-to-day work is insurance. I'm an insurance agent.
And then you do some real estate on the side.
Yeah, I also own real estate. We own real estate, and that is just you never know when my time is going to be demanded, but certain times of the year are a lot heavier than others. But yep.
You had a crazy something that happened this year.
You're gonna have to be a little more specific.
You had I don't know if I can say this. There was a tenant passed away in your unit, right?
Yep.
And then
actually, that's actually not what I thought you were gonna say.
Oh,
I have crazy things happen all the time with tenants, but
yeah, for the first time ever, just dealing with a dead body, that was crazy because he lived alone.
Yeah, that was not great. I got a call from a sheriff, and they told me that they said, first off, do you own this building, yada yada. I was like, yep, sure do. And what can I help you with? Well, we got notified that your tenant passed away, and he's been there for about 5 days, and this was in the winter, so the heat was on full blast. So basically, we had a partially decomposed body inside this apartment, and the law enforcement does a little bit. I say a little bit. I mean, they help get rid of the carcass itself, but then there's the remainder.
That's so weird calling a human a carcass.
I'm just trying to be a little less gruesome about it, and
carcass is less gruesome.
I don't know, but I mean, just being very raw. That's
why
that's
I
kind of
brought it up, because it's like crazy stories like that are. I mean, if you say insurance and real estate, people start to doze off, but I'm like, you have some wild stuff that happens.
Yeah, real estate keeps things lively sometimes, but yeah, that happened, and don't recommend it. Wasn't fun. I ended up hiring a service, which was, hindsight, I'll probably never do that again because they just take you for a ride. But who wants to deal with
I would say you want to clean it up yourself.
Decomposed body remainder. I'm trying to avoid using descriptive terms that'll gross people out.
Basically like a biohazard team.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what they do. They handle biohazard material. And there's it's kind of like asbestos. Like they say that they have like a special service where they're going to dispose of it in a environmentally friendly way, but in all reality, it probably ends up in the dumps, just like everything else. That's kind of my unfiltered opinion on that, where they have basically this big marketing scheme to charge you an exorbitant amount of money. But yeah, and then I still had to go in there after because it still smelled, and I basically hacked up a lung mixing together concoction of bleach and Dawn dish soap and vinegar and mopping the place like crazy to get the smell out and get it clean. But yeah, not a fun experience. So that was a low point of the year for sure.
Not just a low point for you, that's a low point for him.
And that was like 3 weeks after I bought the property. So that was the only place that I bought this year, because the real estate market's just been kind of the Wild West. But I bought that place, and barely after I had even owned it, that happened. So not a great introduction, but it's been a lot better since then.
That's good.
But
it would be alarming if it has been worse.
While I have your attention on some crazy real estate stories, I also got a call or a text from a tenant in that same building that in the apartment next door that he had a complaint to file. You remember this?
I know exactly where you're going.
And he said, I don't really know how I'm supposed to tell you this. It's kind of weird. But the woman next door, she is having intercourse very loudly, and she's also
alone,
pleasuring herself very loudly. And then it was just kind of like, period, end of text. And it's like, all right, now ball's in your court, landlord, you figure this out. So as you can imagine, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? So in the most diplomatic way possible, I handled the situation by communicating with the culprit. And she was demoralized. As you might imagine.
I can't imagine getting that text from Brett Johnson and being like, excuse me, ma'am, we have a noise complaint. Seems that you've been a bit loud.
Let's just tone it down a little bit. And anyway, yeah, that was an interesting one.
Yeah.
I just kind of lose track of things, but honestly, that's a pretty easy fire to put out. Like, I'll take that any day over like a plumbing or sewage issue.
Yeah. That's so funny. I'm trying to think of anything else super noteworthy in 2023.
It's all such a blur. It's crazy how fast time passes.
I know. I'm trying in my head. I'm going like month by month to see if there's anything noteworthy, but I feel like we hit most of the highlights. The house was honestly the biggest one, and that'll be the biggest one of 2024 because we'll move in, and then at the time, this time next year when we're recapping 2024, moving into the house will be such a distant thing because it'll be at the start of 2024.
Yeah, this time next year it'll be very interesting to see what conversation we're having.
It's exciting to think about, though.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see what happens in 2024, and we're excited for you guys to see what you can accomplish in 2024.
Yeah. Excited to be a part of it with you also.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all we've got. We will talk to you next year. In the meantime, if you have any topic suggestions, questions, anything you want to hear us talk about, we'd love to hear your input. You can always email those to our email.
pod@lexijwellness.com.
All right, happy New Year's, right?
Happy New Year, baby.
Yeah. I don't know what date this is going up, but happy New Year. I hope it's a great one. 2024 feels like a good year for a good year.
It should be the 27th, I think.